Hey everyone, welcome to our first episode of Neville Goddard's Wish Fulfilled. This is going to be a new podcast kind of discussing Neville, spiritualism, manifesting, and hopefully much more. I'm here with my permanent guest. He is the main contributor of the sub True Neville Goddard, and I'm excited he's here with me. Hey, welcome.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for inviting me, and I think this podcast is a really great idea, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, thanks for being here with me. He's been contributing to the sub for a little over a year now, and it's kind of reaching its close, and just wanted to try a new format and see if this resonates with people. Um, did you always know that the sub was going to be just like a year mission, or?
Well, the thing is, you can do it for 10 years if you want to, um, but I always knew that it was not going to be very long, mainly because the law, as we call it, is really simple. It's not easy to apply, always, but it's pretty simple. And once you've described it and discussed it from every angle, the only thing you can do is repeat what you've already said. And I really did not want to be just another person who's repackaging the same points just to have content all the time. So I decided to have these posts that I was making twice a week, and maybe go for 1 year
Mm-hmm.
and say everything that I wanted to say. And then I didn't really think about transitioning to a new format, but I think this is a great idea to just go from writing, which will always stay there on the sub, to something that's more interactive, like a conversation. And actually, I'm curious, what kind of topics do you have in mind for us? What exactly would you like to discuss on the podcast?
Yeah, gosh, I mean, so many of my own, but so many that I've just captured from the sub that people are also asking. Mainly, how do you attain perfect health, wealth, love, things of that nature? Those are always things that seem to be on people's minds.
Yeah, we can do that, and probably we'll have to do separate episodes for each of these topics, or maybe multi episodes for some of these, as a lot of people are interested in love and has been manifesting. A lot of people care about money, obviously, professional success, relationships of all kinds, and obviously spirituality, metaphysics, as that's the foundation for everything that we're discussing.
For sure. And we definitely need to have deeper conversations about all of those things. Um, but in the beginning, definitely just talking about manifesting, since that seems to be the most intriguing to people
Right.
and more in the zeitgeist. Um, what are your thoughts on manifesting? Why do you think it's so popular right now? Do you think it's magic?
Well, people think it's magic. For thousands of years before this thing we call science came about, if there's a lightning in the sky, people thought it's some kind of magic, some kind of god that's throwing thunderbolts or fighting against another god or against humans angry at the population. So people, I think, have always used the word magic for things they don't understand.
Hmm.
And it doesn't mean that I don't think magic exists, honestly. It's just something that we haven't figured out properly. And the law, when it works, when you can make it work, it does feel like magic, because it goes outside the sphere of what's rational and of what's probable. And when that happens, you say, well, something magic happened. But I'm convinced that if we knew all the aspects of the law and all the functioning of the law, it will just seem like applying a principle rather than being a form of magic.
Didn't Neville say something about magic? Hasn't he used that word before when speaking about revision?
Yeah, I mean, he uses that in his lectures, not so much in his books, but he says revision works like magic, or he says he uses this term, but this is what speakers do in front of an audience, just
Is
to
it
get.
is it like the Matrix where they
Yeah,
say it's just a word?
yeah, it's just a word. That's right. It's not. It shouldn't be taken literally. You have a speaker, and we're speakers here. We're going to say all kinds of things. We're going to use all kinds of terms, and sometimes you do it for dramatic effect. And Neville was an actor. He was a dancer. So, his you listen to his lectures, and they're very dramatic, and the way he talks, in the things he says. So he says it works like magic because he wants to get people's attention on it, not necessarily because he wants them to take it literally, because he says this is a principle. He says the law always works. So he does not describe it, he describes it in mystical ways, but also in scientific ways, because when you say the law always works, that's a science. That's not magic. Magic, maybe it works now, maybe it doesn't, but he's talking about a principle, applying a principle. And his vocabulary, people do get sort of hung up on the vocabulary that he uses, but they forget that what it means to speak to an audience and what you're trying to achieve.
That's one of my questions I have is the vocabulary and what is it that gets people attached to specific things, but we'll talk about that in a different episode.
Yes.
Um, Another question that I kind of just touched on a little bit earlier is why do you think manifesting is so popular right now? What does that say? Is it important to even ask the question of like why are people attracted to this right now in today's day and age, or just why do you think people are interested as a whole?
Right. Well, I think it seems that people are more interested today in manifesting than before, but I think people have always been interested in this notion since it first came out in the 19th century, simply because everybody has desires of some kind. If we have love problems today, they had love problems, 100 years ago and a million years ago. These are standard human emotions or human impulses. Professional success or feeling financially secure, or all of these things have always been at the top of the list for people.
Yeah.
And manifesting simply offered a solution
Yeah.
to these things, a solution that was beyond, just taking action from the outside and hoping for the best. So since this thing came out, people were instantly attracted, and although it was more spiritual, people made it practical, or let's say material. Now, today, manifesting is very popular. I think a lot of it has to do, if we look back on with events like the pandemic, where people were at home in quarantine a lot, and I think people got into the law of attraction a lot more. Kind of became more mainstream. Let's say it had always been, in place, and people were interested
Sure,
in it
just
for
kind
a
of
very
an
long time.
undercurrent.
Yeah,
Undercurrent, excuse me.
yeah. I think it's, yeah, with the internet, with all of these social media, TikTok, YouTube. I think it reached a much larger audience, and I think a young audience as well.
Yeah, I can see that, and that probably has a lot to do with why maybe Neville is so popular. I mean, you speak of so many
Yeah.
thinkers on the sub, like Trower, P.P. Quimby, Helen Wilmans, but why do you think that Neville is the one that captured so many young people into manifesting and just people in general into manifesting?
Right. No, that's true, and I do speak about many other authors on the sub. I did that deliberately because many people who only read Neville think that it starts with Neville. Everything starts and ends with Neville, and actually Neville is just he's one member of a larger movement, and many of the things, the vocabulary he uses,
Yeah.
where he's coming from spiritually, all of these things are the product of his age and the product of this movement we call the New Thought. So
Yeah.
he's not an eccentric guy that has no relation to anything that came before him. On the contrary, he's the product of that, and maybe in some ways the culmination of that, because he wrote and he taught in the 50s, 60s, and at that point, this movement was fully matured. He was not a pioneer. Sometimes you read on the backside of his books a pioneer. He's not a pioneer. That's ridiculous. This movement was fully shaped by the time he came upon the scene.
Yeah, definitely.
But he is very popular today for a number of reasons, and some of them have to do with our own culture. Neville wrote very short books. So Neville did not write, heavy metaphysics, 500-page books where you really uh, get lost in the jargon
Yeah.
or the argument being made.
He's not as theoretical.
Yeah, he's exactly. So that's the other thing, that he's not very theoretical. He's conceptual. He can be, and he's very good at it, but he's very practical. And the next point, and maybe the most important, he talks from experience, right? That's his claim. He always says, "I'm not speculating. I'm not theorizing." And so he was speaking from experience, both when it came to the mystical, his visions, but also about the law. Now, the visions, you either accept them or you don't. You cannot verify if someone says, I had a dream or I had a vision. You cannot verify that. You can believe them or not. But when it comes to the law, Neville said, well, go ahead and test it. Right? And that gives, to me, and I think to others, it gives enormous credibility when someone says test it. Don't just believe me. He's not the only one. Lester Levinson said the same thing, and other teachers who were honest about it and practical said test it. Do not believe anything that you cannot test yourself and prove directly. So he invited you to do that, and some people accuse him, call him a charlatan, and the whole law of attraction being a scam. But really, when someone says test it, and if it doesn't work, discard it, that sounds honest to me.
And if somebody's calling him a charlatan, that just means it didn't work for them.
Exactly. Yes. Absolutely. So I think these are the main reasons why Neville is very, very popular today. And the way, and also we have to say, the way he spoke, he's very magnetic. He's a very charismatic guy, right? We have his lectures, his recorded lectures, not all of them, but those from the 60s in particular, early 70s. And it's just mesmerizing sometimes to just listen to the man talk about the same thing. So you're listening to really the same thing over and over again, and yet there's a force of the speaker to keep you hooked to the message. So all of this combined, I would say, make Neville a lot more popular today than he was during his own lifetime.
Which, I mean, he was popular in his lifetime, too.
Most definitely, he was. A lot of people would show up for his lectures in
Yeah.
LA, New York, but he was not the most popular. He was not someone who published his books with big publishers like
Sure.
Ernest Holmes or Emmett Fox or Murphy, Norman Peale. They would sell hundreds of thousands and millions of copies. And Neville was kind of low profile. He had a very fanatic audience.
Yeah, just a strong fan
Yeah,
base.
a very, very strong base, and he was more charismatic than the others, in my opinion. But he was not what we call of international renown, right? He was not invited like Murphy or others to South Africa, Australia, to all of these places to give lectures. And to my knowledge, he only lectured in the United States, and that's it. But I think today he's a lot more global than he was in his own lifetime.
Yeah, which definitely has to do with the internet and things of that nature. But
Yeah.
also, yeah, people can resonate with somebody who, or want to connect with somebody who is so magnetic and seems like such a powerful manifester.
Absolutely.
What do you think made Neville such a powerful manifester?
Well, Neville lived for it, really. I mean, the man said, I worked at J.C. Penney, and they fired me, or Macy's, one of them. And I did not want to have an employer ever again. And he was a dancer, but that's not a 9-to-5 profession anyway. But from the 30s onward, that's the only thing that he wanted to do. And we say that Neville was a powerful manifester, but let's remember how he started. He wasn't always like that, right? I mean, he needed his teacher Abdullah to help him manifest a trip to his home island, Barbados. So he did have a learning it was a learning process for him too, and I think anyone can kind of follow the same path, but it takes a lot of dedication. And
Sure.
Neville, I think, gives that example of how to make that a lifestyle. I think how to make it a lifestyle.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, it definitely was his life for gosh, the last what,
Yeah, decades.
30
Yeah,
years of his
yeah,
life, it seems
absolutely,
like.
absolutely.
Um, which is really interesting. He seems like somebody who was really good at just manifesting for himself and for others.
Right.
Um, but what does that say about if he's so obsessed with something like this and made it a lifestyle? What does that say about attachment? Was he so attached to it, or was he, completely detached? Which I know attachment has to work with like specific things that you're manifesting, but
Well, I think that he had a goal, right? Neville said you should have goals, and I think his goal was mainly spiritual. He used the law, but he said I want an experience of Christ. So he wanted to experience the Bible. That was his goal, and he had an attachment. Even you listen to the masters of the East, and they say your only desire should be not to have desires. So that's an attachment. I'm attached to my quest, to my spiritual quest,
mm,
right? I'm attached to the desire to end all desire. I'm attached to the notion of being free from this material world, right? That's the philosophy of India. So there's always a level of attachment, and I think Neville was very attached to his mission. He said, I have this mission to spread the message and to sort of talk about my experience and what it means and talk about the law, and I'm gonna just do it until I drop dead. He would say, just say these things from the podium. I don't care. I will present this message. So he was very attached to his mission and his beliefs, for sure. So that also made him a powerful manifester.
yeah.
Now, people are obviously they want to be like Neville, right? They want to be a powerful manifester. And becoming a powerful manifester involves not copying what Neville did necessarily, but people kind of want to manifest quickly. And Neville was very studious. Neville talks in his lecture about his love for books and for knowledge and for learning. And that's why I said that Neville is a product of the New Thought movement and not some random guy who showed up out of nowhere. He read hundreds of books on this topic. So he had a very strong foundation. A powerful manifester is a knowledgeable person. It's not someone who watches a video that says ignore circumstances and then he's a powerful or she's a powerful manifester the next day. It doesn't work like that. And if it works like that for one person, doesn't mean that that's a good way to do it.
All right.
You have to do the study. You have to understand what the law is if you want to be like Neville, if you want to be a powerful manifester first of all. And then you want to practice it. That's why he said test it. Take something that you want, he would say. Or do an experiment like the ladder experiment, or try little things that he talks about in his lectures. And once those work, you rely on your own experience. That's also what he said. You want to become a good manifester, you have to rely on your experience. First is faith, he said, and then it's experience, something more stable than faith. Because you rely on yourself, you rely on evidence from you're on solid ground, he said. So if you want to be a powerful manifester, you have to do these things. Understand the law, know what the law is, and then practice it and rely on your own experience afterwards.
With specific things that people are wanting. So he says you need to, know from your own experience with specific things that people are trying to manifest.
Yeah.
Is it best to persist or is it best to detach?
Yeah, I mean, Neville has these things that he says that seem contradictory sometimes. Whether to stay with it. We were talking about attachment earlier, right? And some schools talk about letting go and detaching from it, or you hear on YouTube a million videos about detaching from the outcome, whatever they think that means, and then you listen to Neville and he says, well, persist. So then the question is, if you fail, let's say you fail at manifesting, and then you're thinking, what did I fail? Is it because I did not persist enough, or is it because I didn't let go? So you don't know which one because you feel like you tried both to some extent, but something didn't work. But when it comes to letting go, essentially, this is about the bad attachment. It's about the notion that whatever you're looking for, your happiness depends on it.
Mm.
So it's not an attachment. It's more of a conditioning. So you're conditioning your happiness, your well-being, to the fulfillment of that particular goal, whatever it is.
Sounds connected to the ego.
Yeah, definitely, it's connected to the ego, and some things are more difficult to accept. Let's say you have a health problem. Like, how do I convince myself that having health or not be attached to the notion of health, because that's
Right.
preservation of my body. So I have to have a spiritual understanding that I'm not a body and this life is not everything for me to be able to detach and be okay with the notion of being sick or dying. So that's not an easy one, right, to detach from. Other things, material, let's call them, are easier to some extent, but people make that mistake of conditioning their happiness to owning certain things or to having a certain lifestyle or to having certain people in their lives. And that's the one that needs to be dropped. That's the one that needs to be let go. As far as persisting is concerned, well, any goal requires a level of persistence. Not everything drops in your lap. Things happen in stages. You have to maintain your interest. You have to uh, just stay motivated and do the things that need to be done. And with manifesting is the same thing. Maybe you're not fully convinced yet,
Yeah.
right? Maybe you're not fully convinced that you're going to get what you want.
Mm-hmm.
That is the essence of the law, believing that you got it already.
Sounds like there could be some mental blocks there.
Well, that's right. I mean, you have attachment. That's a big factor in failure, and then you have these mental obstacles that are preventing you from reaching the state you need to be in to manifest.
Do you want to touch on mental blocks a little bit more?
Sure, and this is a huge topic, obviously. Mental blocks, mental conditioning, mental obstacles, and all of this is subconscious. None of that is a conscious problem that can be resolved immediately. But these are subconscious programs that you kind of develop as a result of traumatic events in life. Maybe early in life, often, because that's when you're helpless. And the defense mechanism kind of kicks in and produces these programs. So, for example, let's say you want success, but for some reasons in the past you feel unworthy or have low confidence or a sense of self-worth that is not very high. Now, how can you ever live in the end of being successful? How can you identify? Because you have to identify with success in order to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
So, how can you identify with success if you feel unworthy subconsciously? You may do your routines, you may do your whatever you're doing in terms of techniques, but this subconscious program will always kill your feeling of the wish fulfilled. So you have to deactivate that program in order for you to be able to reach the state you need to be in, because that has to become stable. Neville talks about it all the time. The state that becomes stable, your habitual state, he calls it, that's the one that's going to manifest.
Yeah.
And the habitual state, unfortunately, is dictated by these subconscious programs.
Yeah.
So those need to be dealt with. And again, this is a vast topic to tackle. Probably not even just one episode.
Oh, for sure.
We will have
thinkers that we need to talk about whenever talking
Right.
about mental blocks.
Absolutely.
One that I'm thinking of is Lester Levinson.
Sure.
For
No.
sure.
Mhm. No, it's a huge topic, and definitely it's one that's being neglected as people come to Neville or find Neville when they're desperate for something,
Yes.
usually, and they don't have time for the theory or they don't have time for these things. They're like, okay, well, I want a solution now. I want something quick, to fix whatever problem I'm having because I'm in pain and I want this to go away. And they don't want to go through the motions. They just want to get to the end. But they
Yeah.
fail to stabilize that state, and they get into this vicious circle where not only that they're not getting their wish fast, but they spend years sometimes. And instead of spending 6 months placing the foundation and working on what you should be working, you spend years looking for instant gratification that never
Right.
comes, looking for a shortcut that never happens.
And what does
essentially.
Troward say? Like, your failure of the law results in you not believing in the law.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you get into that hole and you go deeper and deeper, you're skeptical. Everyone is skeptical at the beginning because it sounds crazy anyway, right?
You're believing in something so much powerful, so much bigger than you.
Yeah. So if it doesn't work at the beginning, then you're gonna lose whatever faith you had, And since you have a pressing matter anyway, and you want a solution that amplifies the disappointment, I guess. And you end up with a crowd that hates the law of attraction and thinks that's the worst thing that's happening on the internet.
Well, I understand the feelings of being burned by it, but they're probably not doing the deep research that they need to know, or do. Maybe not having the full, I don't think that, I think that there are some people out there that just have like a true, just powerful intuition that can lead them to this thing without them even knowing it. But for the vast majority, I think that it does take learning and reading and putting your mind to it and understanding it, and then that intuition comes into play later.
Right.
So for the vast majority, yeah, you do have to just, and I don't even think that maybe I'm necessarily there at all, but I'd like to think that my habitual state stays at a 50.01%, like you like to say.
Yeah, that's a dangerous place to be, though, right? Because
is
any
dangerous,
fluctuation is gonna is gonna sink you in a red zone. But yeah, I think you're right. Intuition is great if you come into this world with that muscle, developed. But if not, you have to develop it. And the law is difficult because it goes against your reasoning mind.
Right.
You're simply asked to ignore some facts or what your senses are dictating, and I'm required to ignore that. Not only to ignore it, but to actually shift mentally into a state that is sometimes completely denied by the facts. So I gotta find some spiritual reason to do that, or some intuitive perception to do that, because naturally it doesn't happen. And the second I'm thinking about the facts, those become overpowering, right? It's just the way it is. So your realization has to be so strong, where you cannot be diverted, as Neville would say. You just cannot be moved, and you're gonna stay in that state no matter what.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's another topic that probably would deserve special attention.
Oh, don't you worry. I have several topics that we'll talk about in many, many episodes.
Well, I'm looking forward.
I am too.
I understand today you wanted just an overview, and maybe we accomplished that.
I think so. I think we're kind of reaching our time frame too. Yeah, just everybody be on the lookout. We hope to do this maybe twice a month. Thanks for being here with me, and thanks for joining the sub. I know he really appreciates it. I really appreciate it. True Neville Goddard. Yeah.
Sounds good.
All
Looking
right.
forward to the next episode.
All right now. Well, y'all take it easy.
Take care,
Have a good
guys.
one.
Bye.